Yo, what up, what up? This is Mike Hill, the Wholesaling Titan, and what I want to talk about in today's video is making phone calls and being more confident on the phone. Now, I think developing proficiency on the phone is a skill that everyone can have and really should have. And, even if you don't plan on making your own phone calls, you want to outsource this stuff, I've got some information in here that you can use to train your staff and or your partners. So before we jump into the video, I just want to let you know that this is actually an excerpt from my upcoming program. It's called Generation Domination. And after receiving your comments and emails and DMs, messages, and successfully coaching students for several years now, fact is, man, most wholesalers don't have enough leads coming into their pipeline and an appropriate follow-up system. This is quite frankly the area where most people have the most trouble and where and why most people just quit. Like, I see a lot of people who just keep spinning their wheels. They're very motivated, very busy, and they work hard, but they're just never doing any deals, And then I've seen people who do a deal, but then they're not sure if they're going to do a deal next month. They go 3 months without a deal, or people hit me up, they've done their first, but can't quite seem to do the second. And so they have to keep that 9-to-5 job for stability. That can be so frustrating, especially when you're working so much. And I know because I've been there. Now, if you don't want to be wondering if you're going to do a deal this month, this is what you need to do. You need to put in place processes, systems, habits, scripts, practices, and daily routines so you're operating basically like a machine. You need to know what you should be doing every single day. If I say to you, hey, it's 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, what should you be doing? You should know exactly what you should be doing. And the idea here is to have a very strong foundation in place to ensure that at a minimum you have regular predictable income coming in every single month. And then you just double down on the systems that are working and kind of up the volume when you want to do more deals. Also, on a side note, this really is not a money thing. Yes, money will absolutely help you grow your systems when you have it. But I remember being part of a mastermind group and sitting down listening to a couple talk about spending $10,000 on a direct mail campaign and not doing any deals. Well, I was doing deals in that same market with very, very little marketing. So this training program is designed to, again, just keep your pipeline full of leads and put systems in place to really nurture those leads so you can turn them into deals. Here are just some of the modules that I've been working on. I got some stuff on mindset shifts before you get started, your daily routine, what you should and shouldn't be doing on a daily basis, prospecting for leads, ways to find motivated sellers, and figuring out which one is the best for you based on your situation, your market, your resources, the importance of making phone calls, how many you should be making, when you should make them, when you should follow up, when you should outsource, the truth about cold calls, dealing with rejections, developing killer instinct, dealing with objections, and then there's some really cool stuff in there. I'm also going to be recording some of my live phone calls so you can listen in on me and my business and kind of emulate those. And there's just some other really dope stuff in there. So that's going to be released during the first week of February. It is a paid program. Cost is going to be $197. But if you pre-order it now, I'm giving you $100 off as kind of an early bird special. So you can grab this thing for 97 bucks. I'm going to go ahead and post the link in the description below. You can click on that to get more information. So definitely take advantage of that early bird discount. And like all of my training programs, it is backed by a money back guarantee. So no risk there. So check that out, and then let's get back into this video here, right? So this is just the beginning of a training segment where I talk about making phone calls. It's actually nothing too deep here, but I decided to share this segment because kind of surprisingly received a lot of questions about how to become more confident on the phone. Seems to be a sticking point for a lot of people. And so here are just some helpful tips, warm-up exercises, and mindset shifts that will help you get ready to start dialing. So again, if you do enjoy the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, smash on that like button for me, and be sure to hit the notification bell. And again, thanks so much, and let's go ahead and get into this excerpt right now. Okay, so check it. In this module, we're going to be talking about making the call. Now, in our previous module, I explained to you why these calls are so important. Hopefully, I really drove that point home. At this point, you should know and be convinced. There shouldn't be any doubt how important these calls are. We talked about scheduling, when the best time to make these calls are, stuff like that. But here's what I found with a lot of students, even after they know that they have to make the calls, they're familiar with the scripts, they know what to say, but when it comes time to actually making that phone call, a lot of them get a little bit nervous. There's some anxiety. I get questions like, Mike, how can I be more confident? And so I got a couple of tips here on making the phone call and what's going to make that a little bit easier for you. So to get started, again, you just have to, step one is realize you need to make these calls. You've seen the numbers. You've seen how it translates to dollars. And so, again, I won't spend too much time on this because we talked about it already. But you know that it's not optional. You have to make these phone calls. Next, I want you to realize that this is a skill set. It's not something you need to be good at naturally. So any of this, I'm not a phone person, I'm not good at talking to people, I'm introverted. These are all excuses and it's all bullshit. You need to realize that you can get good and proficient at this. You just have to put the work in, you have to put the practice in. So just like with any skill, you're asking, how can you be more confident? The thing that breeds confidence is competency. So how can you be more competent is by frequency and volume. There's just nothing that's going to, you can't think your way into being good at this. You got to hit frequency and volume. You just got to make as many calls as you can, and you will develop the skill set, I promise you. So one thing, you've got a script in your script packages, for example, calling for rent landlords who are renting their properties. Now, when you call those are going to be some of your lowest conversion rates. They're just usually not as motivated in my experience, but I want you to call them anyway, simply because it will give you the reps. You just want to put the reps in. When you get that type of volume, you get comfortable talking over and over and over, getting more familiar with your scripts and stuff like that. And the faster you can do that, the least amount of time will get you to the place where you need to be. So that's the first thing we're going to really harp on is frequency and volume, right? Again, competence breeds confidence. Next, I want you to think about this. Rejection is a good thing. So a lot of people, they don't want to get rejected. And in the business that we are in, you're going to get rejected often. It happens. There's not as many people wanting to sell their property or needing to sell their property as the ones who want to sell their property. So you just kind of have to get used to it. But here's the analogy I want you to think about. Now imagine there's a room of 100 people. And I tell you, one person in this room has $10,000 that they will give to you, but you just have to ask them for it. So you go to the first person, hey man, you got those 10 G's? Nah man, I don't have it. Ask the second person, hey, you have those 10? They get mad at you. Hey, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Who are you? All right, you ask the third person, they don't have it. Would you quit? Would you just stop asking? Absolutely not. The faster you can get through the no's, the faster you'll get to the yes. You'll find that person. And it kills me that I have, either people that email me or hit me up on social media, or students when they first come in, they get their first 3 no's or contracts rejected, or they kind of get yelled at or whatever, and then they quit and they stop. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, just get through the no's as fast as possible. Get through the rejections as fast as possible so you can get to the person that has your money. Right? So again, rejection is a good thing. Just think about it, again, as getting through the no's to get to the yes. All right. Next, I want you to, when you're starting your calls, especially if you're a first timer, you're very new to this, just focus on dialing. If you start thinking too far ahead, what's the phone call going to be like? What am I going to say? And thinking about the actual call, it can put a lot of pressure on you. The thing you want to do is just focus on dialing. Don't think about anything beyond that. Just focus on dialing numbers and pressing the send button. And then whatever happens from there happens. And the analogy I like with this is the gym. A lot of us can relate to, we don't feel like going to the gym. We don't want to go to the gym. But then when we go, you get the endorphin release. You feel good about yourself. And then it feels fantastic. You're glad that you did it. I remember reading in a book. I can't even remember which one it was. But the author, it might have been Howell's book. Might have been Miracle Morning. Either way, He said what he does is focus on just getting in the car and driving, putting his gym bag in the car and driving to the gym. Doesn't think about the workout, doesn't think about how hard it's going to be, doesn't think about that. His focus is gym bag in the car, drive there. And that's it. So I just want you to focus on that first step. Don't overwhelm yourself thinking too deep into the situation. Just go ahead and think about taking that first step. All right. Next, I want you to think about the worst case scenario. Oh my God, Mike, what if this person yells at me? Oh, what if they curse me out? I mean, is it really going to be that bad? Like, imagine the worst thing. They talk about you. They call your mom names. Horrible. It's really not that bad. The worst case rejection, it's more so the anticipation of rejection, why a lot of people don't want to make the calls, but the rejection itself is rarely that bad. And then also the worst case scenario oftentimes doesn't even happen. So again, the worst case scenario, number one, is not really that bad if it does happen. And number two, it almost never happens, right? All right, so next, let's talk about the ice ball theory. I use this in my life often in countless situations. And all this means is that this world that we're on, this earth, is one day going to be nothing more than a ball of ice. You know, our sun will die. We will all be dead. And it's a little dark, but it doesn't really matter. So a lot of times in so many situations, I see people put so much freaking pressure on themselves on these situations. And I was just thinking, ultimately, it really doesn't matter. If someone curses you out 5 years from now, that's not going to matter. And one day you will be 6 feet under. You will be dead. So this is something I use in all different areas of my life. You don't want to have regret. Nothing's ever that serious. We're all going to die. It's all ultimately not going to matter that much. So just do what you need to do to enjoy your time here, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. And again, that kind of goes back to the whole rejection thing. Not really a big deal. Next, motivation. I have a lot of rants on motivation, but the one I want to talk about here is know that action precedes motivation. It is always easier to act your way into thinking than to think your way into acting. And what I mean by that is if you just overthink too much, I got to make myself feel good. I got to, it can, again, put too much pressure. It can be overwhelming. If you want to be motivated to do this, you got to just focus on taking the action, and then the motivation will come. And again, that's going to come more and more by putting in the reps. All right, so next one is something that was a huge, huge issue for me. A lot of you guys probably heard me talk about this before, but when I used to either, call and talk to people and say, I'm going to make you a cash offer, I didn't have the cash in the bank, so it felt very inauthentic, and for a lot of people, it feels almost dishonest, right? And so they really struggle with that. But here's what I'll tell you. I have thousands and thousands of cash buyers on my buyers list. Now, a lot of them, maybe even the majority of them that buy properties from me, don't necessarily have that money sitting in a bank account. They're using either hard money or they're using private money. This goes back to Rich Dad 101, talking about building wealth and wealth creation by using other people's money. So when you're doing these deals, you're not saying, hey, I have cash in the bank. You are saying, hey, I'll make you a cash offer. I will get you cash for this house. Essentially, if the numbers make sense, right? And that's what your whole contract says. And there's nothing wrong or dishonest about that. If you are double closing, for example, you're going to get the transactional funding. So it's going to be wired in cash. You will buy the property and you will actually own it, albeit for 5 minutes. But whether you buy and resell after 5 minutes or buy and resell after 5 years, it doesn't matter. You are coming through on the promise that you said. You will have the cash available if the deal is good. And so you don't have to feel bad about that. You don't have to feel like it's, not being authentic or dishonest in any way. And so that really should not be a sticking point. People buy stuff all the time and they're not using, their own cash even when they're paying cash. So that's completely cool, totally cool. Don't let that be a deterrent for you. All right, next, I want you to take the pressure off by thinking of the call as practice. So a lot of times students, again, this is just a lot of this, you see how mental it is, putting all this pressure on yourself, but they think about this one call. I got to make this call work. Or a lot of people come from a place of desperation, or what's happening on this phone call. And instead of doing that, I want you to think about the call now as practice. Think about it as practice for the call 6 weeks from now or 6 months from now, the one that's going to be the huge deal, right? So when you think of your calls as practice, it takes a lot of that pressure off, because you know that, I'm not focused on this particular deal right here, but this call here is going to make me better for the one that matters, for when it counts. So think of it as practice. Next, you can do what I call the golden phone call. So this is where before you make your calls, to motivated sellers, listing agents, what have you, you make a phone call to a good family friend, a family member or a friend, someone you just want to talk to, someone you kind of shoot the shit with, and that's just to get you in a talkative mood. So you can call, I don't know, a friend, sister, brother, whatever, and just talk to them for 5 minutes. Get yourself warmed up, your vocal cords warmed up, get you kind of in the mood, in a talkative mood, and that can really help, as opposed to, if your first call of the day, you jump on a professional call. It can be, you can still do it, but for some of you, especially if you're new, it can be a little bit stifling. So it's good to just kind of loosen up your attitude, your vocal cords, all that good stuff by having that golden phone call, and then it will just get you in the talking mood so that you can go ahead and crush it. All right, next, I want you to focus on minimizing time between calls. So you want to set up in your schedule, you want to do what I call chunking. And now, again, I'm always about being proactive and doing things as fast as possible. So if you're driving down the road and you see a for sale by owner sign, by all means, feel free to hit them up right then and there. Especially if you have your script on you, you just make the call right there. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying when you're planning your phone calls, through your workday, you don't want to do a call or two at 9 o'clock and then you kind of do some BS, and then 1 o'clock you make another call, and then like that. What you want to do is set at least an hour of time and just go through nonstop. Like, you don't even hang up the phone. Just keep dialing, dial. There's software that allows you to do that. Also, if you are in Florida and using Refax like I do, there's an option there, the professional dialer, where it will just call for you, and it will just call. As soon as you hang up the phone, it'll just call the next number, and that's really the best way to do it. It gets you in flow state. Again, back to the reps. You get the reps in, and you can just hit that volume. Remember, not every call is going to be a deal, so the more you do, the more phone calls you make, the more deals you do. It's like that simple. But also, you'll just get more proficient a lot faster and hone this skill by doing these in this manner. Okay, next, I want you to record yourself on the call, and then afterwards play it back and take notes. I've done this so much, and it was so helpful. There are times where I thought, hey, that was a good call, and I listened to it, and I'm like, oh shit, man, this is pretty bad. But I took notes, and that's how I developed a lot of the scripts that you guys have now, because I would listen back and say, oh, the guy said this is what I should have said. Oh, this person was upset, this is how I should have responded. I should have, taken responsibility here. And that's how I've really crafted these things. So do that on your own. And then if there's certain things that vibe with you, your personality, the way you speak, something like that, feel free to go back to your scripts and you can incorporate it and kind of develop these a little bit further to make them your own, make them flow a little bit better. According to your personal style. So recording, reviewing, and then taking notes is going to be a phenomenal practice that you want to do. Next, always use your script. We talk about this in other modules. So again, I'm not going to harp on this too long, but it's just very important. It's easy to get caught up in certain things like the rapport building, which we do incorporate into the scripts. But some people, they can go off on a tangent. Next thing you know, they're talking about some shit they have in common that's really not objective oriented. The goal here is to get that contract. So make sure you're using your script. Stay on point there. You can watch that video. I go into a lot more detail. So hopefully those pointers really help you out. What I want to do next is go into some NLP stuff. So that's neuro-linguistic programming. If you're not familiar with it, it's amazing. I've used this tool in so many areas of my life. It's really phenomenal. The whole concept here is that your brain is essentially a computer, and it will run according to the commands and the code that you give it. So it's a way of reprogramming your mind. It's created by Dr. Richard Bandler, I believe that's his name. And it's really phenomenal. In psychology, they use it. There are a couple different ways you can use it, and I'm going to throw you an example really quickly. So there's one school of thought that says, if you have a phobia, for example, you're afraid of something, we need to dig into your past and how was your mom and how was your dad and, what experiences did you have, why you might have this phobia. And once we figure out the root and the source, then we can, come full circle to solve it. That's one school of thought. Now, NLP, and this dude was basically like, hey, all that shit happened in the past. Doesn't matter. Like, we want to fix the problem. We want to focus on the solution, and that's all I'm going to focus on. I don't really give a shit what happened in your past. And that type of, man, there's some amazing, if you can read his book, or even just do some Google searching, there's some amazing testimonies where people have had like these irrational phobias and been in therapy for years, sometimes decades. And then with a little bit of NLP, they've been able to completely get rid of their phobia that they've had for, again, decades, literally in like 10 minutes. So really is quite amazing. I've used one concept in there called anchoring, and this is where you do a physical move that's tied to a positive experience that can then bring you back to that moment. So for me, a lot of you guys know I'm an MMA fighter, right? So one thing I do is I have my anchor, which basically I make a fist, I squeeze my fist as hard as I can 3 times, and then I have a mantra that I say to myself in my head. And I've done this anytime I've had a very good sparring session, where I was really killing it. Anytime I've had a victory inside the cage, I've done that move. So now when I'm going to perform, be it a sparring session or jumping in the cage or on the mat, I'll do that, and it'll essentially bring my brain back to those moments where I had very positive training or fights, and then it just kind of gets you in that mode. It takes you back, it activates that flow state. So what we're gonna do in the next module is I'm gonna run you through an NLP reprogramming exercise that's going to actually get you in beast mode for making these calls. I'm gonna show you how to positively associate and how to really get in the zone. This is essentially gonna be a form of hypnosis. I know some people don't like that word and they think it's like, a little woo-woo, oh, that doesn't work on me. Be a little bit open-minded. This is something you're going to want to watch when you're by yourself, headphones, all that stuff. And I'm going to show you a routine that you can go through that really will get you into flow state. We're going to reprogram you, and this is going to be super dope. And you can use this every day before you get into your phone call. So again, hopefully the pointers here were helpful. This next NLP exercise is going to be the chunk of this that's really going to be all about getting you in the zone. So hopefully you got some good notes here, and then when you're ready, jump into the next module and we'll get our NLP on. So I'll see you guys in there.